It's 10 a.m. on Thursday the 30th. This is a study session to look at a proposed RFP to eventually produce a water master plan to support our county's comprehensive plan. We're not making any decisions today, just kind of reviewing the plan for the way ahead and talking through deliverables. No minutes will be taken, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. I'm Mark Dettenreiter, Director of Community and Economic Development for Elbert County Government. And as the Commissioner indicated, we're here to discuss an RFP for a county-wide water master plan. And again, this does tie directly into our 2018 county master plan or comprehensive plan. And the goal of this plan in brief is to just get a general status of our current water resources in Elbert County based on our housing needs assessment that was completed last year. It's projected another 3,000 housing units over the next 10 years would be the anticipated need. Looking also with respect to this plan, do we have any policy, incentives, policy type modifications, adjustment that could help support longer term efficiencies with respect to existing water systems, and of course water systems that will be projected in the future. I'd say the three big points I want to touch on here for you gentlemen as it relates to this plan, first being the importance, as you know, of finding a consultant that will partner with us on this, that has the upfront understanding, A, and then B, the ability to craft this plan in plain language, right? That's extremely important. So that is going to be at the forefront when we do the interviews for those who have bidded successfully in terms of getting an interview with us on the RFP itself. The second thing has to do with our current well users. So how do we ensure that at least have a conversation about how supply remains viable, look at conservation, are there any upgrades possible for existing systems as it relates to efficiencies and so forth. And then the third big piece of this has to do with new developments and how do we encourage those developments to be as efficient as possible to meet the 300-year requirement that you all have instituted. So look at we're gonna, in summary, we're really gonna have to look at and get information about supply, about technologies that will help with conservation and efficiency, and again, how we can arrive at some confirmation that our 300-year rule is achieving its goal. And again, plain English, that's the thrust of it. So I'll stop there, and if you have any comments or questions, I'll entertain them. Thank you.
Going through it, it seems. Oh, microphone. Yeah, okay. No, reading through it, I think you did capture. I mean, it's a really good product, I think, and steering us towards what we're asking for. And you're right about the plain language. This is apt to be. I personally think it's apt to be the most important thing we do over the next year in terms of ensuring we got a viable future and addressing what concerns we've been hearing for citizens for years. So, I've got some wording things here and there that I think as we walk through that are as much to signal to our citizens what's important to us as to clarify what a proposal might want to look at. I know there was quite a bit of, as you get to the end, there was quite a few references to a steering committee. I think it would be useful to kind of identify who you're looking at, maybe have a small core group that will be part of the steering committee, take a last look at this as well before, I think you said you're going to release it on the 1st of May, is that what I saw? So we got some time. And I said, I think it's suitable, it's enough, it's good, it could go out today, but I think the people that are going to be evaluating what comes in, if you can at least have a core group of folks that know what was being asked for, and I think it should probably include at least a couple of members of the Planning Commission. And we do have some folks that were part of the Water Advisory Council in years past that may still be available, at least one person that has that deeper history of what got us through the rural water supply study, et cetera. And then, whoever else makes sense. That was kind of my overall thing.
If I could comment on that, pardon me, Commissioner Schroeder. I would agree, and thanks for bringing up the Planning Commission, and if we can dig up some folks from the Water Advisory Council, that would be great. Have them that key steering committee to review and evaluate this RFP before it goes out. Take a note of that. Excellent idea. And then, of course, we'll get this in front of the folks that internally, the team that will be on the interview committee as well. And we'll touch on it maybe later, but if we don't, I just wanted to make a special note for the record, the importance of the community engagement piece of this, and of course that when we are looking for that partner in this plan in the way of a consultant, that's going to be a really primary component for me anyway when we get to interviews, to see how they are going to address that outreach and engagement. Of course, we know the folks and the players in the community, and we know who will would be of benefit to us and to the county to assist in the process, but so we can guide the consultant, right, and lead them to the people in our community, in the county. But we'll have them, take it'd be interesting to see, based on previous experience, how they were able in previous plans, studies, to really, get as much input from the broader public as possible. Thank you.
So there's a couple of questions or clarifications, really. I don't know how common everybody understands the Denver Aquifer Basin incorporates all of the aquifers. So they may just see that and think we're just talking about the Denver. Somehow to make sure that the public understands this is a study of all the aquifers, not just, I understand that's what it's intended, but it's maybe not clear to someone who's not that familiar with it.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I see that on page 5, maybe some other places, but we'll note that and make sure that we clarify that there are 5 and that involve us here in the Elbert County within the Denver Basin Aquifer. Thank you.
And then there's several places in here it talks about the 300 water rule. Will they be evaluating that as well and seeing how appropriate that is and looking at more or less where all that falls in?
Yes, indeed. That will be part of it, just to see if it's making sense. Is it, are we achieving our goals? having that rule, if you will, in place, and of course, going beyond the state requirement of the 100-year, and senior leadership and yourselves have aligned yourself with the 300-year and taken it up a notch. So, yeah, well, that'll be a central theme, I believe, throughout. Just looking at how that's working, and is it effective? Is it enough? Like you mentioned, should be more, should be less, that type of thing.
I think it's important. I had kind of written it in on page 3 where you've got the 4 items, the proposed changes to zoning regs or land use policy. I think it was important. I kind of wrote it in as almost the number 0 of, do we look at requiring, or right now it's an aggregate 300 years for all the water under you. Should we be looking at a 300-year per aquifer, and or examine the feasibility of limiting usage to the Dawsons for future development? And I know that kind of trails into a property right thing, but how much? I mean, we're already, it's already accepted that we're cutting people's available use by a third annually. We're not impacting their overall use over the lifetime of the aquifer. So I think we can argue we're not taking a property right, we're just metering its use. But if we were to do other things that limit, and maybe it's a rate reduction in the usage of the Dawsons, but crediting with a slightly higher usage for the deeper, keeping within the 300, but balancing that somehow. But I think that one's kind of key.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, if you gentlemen would be so kind to provide your
I'll get
comments, that would be terrific, so we can incorporate them into the final version of the RFP before it goes out.
And some of the comments I have through here probably don't necessarily change the RFP, but just to keep in mind when we're discussing with the eventual contractor. But I do think just right up front on page 2, the number 1 item of how we demonstrate how current and future large-scale development. I really would like to strike the large scale and just anticipated future development.
Yep, fair enough.
If something like Highlands Ranch is, I think everybody who accept is large-scale development, we're never going to see something there. And I rather than trip over what's the definition of large, that we just look at what's potentially on the books. And
great point. It's very subjective, so we've got a strike through going on that one. Thank you.
At the top of 3, I think there's a flat statement that it's unlikely we'll ever consider options for infrastructure. It's maybe unlikely that we'll ever be able to afford to consider that, but I think some language around considering or looking at potential connections to systems like Parker or Aurora Water that may be readily available, but not necessarily a big infrastructure cost to us.
Okay, thank you.
There was, I think it's going to beg a question towards one of the specifics. Where was it? On page 8, the validation of the assumptions for the 300-yard water rule. I think we need to understand what our assumptions were, because the 2 assumptions that come to mind is the state is right when they make a determination, and our assumption is if they're not right, that gives you 3 times the length of water usage that you would have had under 100 regardless. But I'm not sure if that's really what we're asking to validate those assumptions, or if I guess I'm kind of at a loss there is
Okay.
what we're really asking, because, you know, if our assumption is the state is right, there's no way to determine unless you're going to do like real seismic exploration or something at every property
Yeah.
to validate that the state's assumption is correct on what's there. So.
Well, no, the well survey, the USGS well survey should have a lot of data that should probably influence that, because that data is newer than the implementation of 300.
That I think,
Yeah.
if
Good point.
that may be the better, is using the geologic survey data to validate the assumptions that were made in the water study. Is the water study still valid? And I do know that, I mean, that the projected rate of growth for the county has dropped dramatically from what was projected in the water study. So there may be some, that's probably where some validation
Okay.
can take place.
Fair enough. Yep.
And then and again, this may not be RFP language, which is making sure our eventual contractor understands is a little lower down the options available to extend the life of the Denver Basin. You know, recognizing that we only pull about 4.5% of the total water usage annually. You know, I mean, we could stop using the Denver Basin and it wouldn't impact the Denver Basin's total viability. So.
Yeah, we're a fraction.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then page 9, the other one I think that was substantial, and you addressed it earlier, but for the steering committee,
Yeah.
the client responsibilities, the group comprised of, it starts with the representative of the counties. I would say, you know, I'd start with citizens, representatives of the county. Just, I mean, we kind of left the citizens out of that.
Yep.
That group. I know it's intended to include them, but
Yeah, let's spell it out. Yep, because they are key in this.
I mean, it's ours to put together, but
Sure.
I think it's right that we start right from the beginning, recognizing they're a big part. And then the other notes I had were, I said, I don't think they really impact the RFP, but just things to consider as we're
Yeah.
scoping it, so that we know that they understand what we understand.
Well, for sure. Yeah, so those additional comments you gentlemen have will be great. Yeah, for the lead up, preparation for the interviews of the potential contractors, and then of course once we assign or align with one, decide, then we can ensure that we have our full scope and goals ready and detailed and outlined, and have clear direction for them.
And just remind me on funding for this.
Pardon me?
Funding for the.
Yes, yeah, so we did receive a grant from the Colorado Water Conservation Board to the tune of $45,000, which should cover approximately half of the total bill for this project. So we're grateful for the CWCB, and of course the body that we went before prior to CWCB was the South Platte Basin Roundtable, and they gave a recommendation to the CWCB to support and fund our project, and so grateful for both of those entities and their belief in what we're doing here.
And I guess I would say it's down the road, but as these come back, if we have what look like good proposals that meet our needs, that come in higher, let's talk about that, because I think that this is important enough not to cut ourselves short just because we want to keep it under a budgeted cap or a estimated cost.
Good point.
And then I just, as you've been working on this, are there other counties or large communities that have water plans that you think would meet the mark, or that this is a good plan, something that
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's my understanding, having conversations with water consultant in the field, that El Paso County has put together a water master plan. Arapahoe County, I believe, is in process as we speak with a water master plan. Other than that, I've been told there may not be other models out there in the state, so it seems like we're part of that forerunner group.
Okay, I'm good that, I mean, it's good that, yeah, I'd heard Arapahoe was looking, and part of the, part of what they were looking at was a 300-year water plan in their unincorporated areas, so.
Yeah.
And they're a big they're a very big consumer of the Denver aquifer as well. I think I'm good. I do think, like I said, if this is going out in early May, maybe that first meeting in May, while the RFP's floating around out there, that we do it a little more formal presentation in the discussion part of one of our meetings, just more to highlight the pieces of what we're looking for, what we're considering, what we're hoping to get out of this, just so we kind of, I mean, I think this needs to be very public, just because it's such a, it's a subject of so much passion that if we don't continue to be very public and be part of the conversation about it, then we're going to be fighting conversation and conjecture.
Agreed, yeah. So, and we'll be sure to get this on a BOCC agenda for discussion as that RFP is being launched and submitted. So, great idea. The RFP issue date is slated for the beginning of May, and then we'll have a proposal due date of May 18th. Again, these are just tentative dates, but we'll be pretty close to these, given the fact we have a fairly firmed up RFP in front of us as we speak, and then select a vendor middle of June, and then get the project started right at the beginning of July. So, yeah, and then a 6-month time frame is what we're looking at. Our chosen consultant contractor could indicate that, hey, that's not enough time, and if that's the case, that's fine. We'll have it roll over into the first part of 2024 if needed. So kind of like what you mentioned about the cost, and if due to the importance of it, if it goes a little above what maybe we thought, let's make sure we're doing the right thing to get the best study possible, and the same applies for the time frame. Yeah.
Just in the keeping the public info, I think May is our next 4-page Elbert County connection, so the timing is good to kind of roll out. This is what we're doing. What we're asking for will be solid and on the street by then.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly talk about it. I think it's going to be, we can plan on it being a topic in our town halls until it's complete.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I like it. Anything else for us, gentlemen?
No, I think it's great. It'll be a part of the guiding documents for the rest of the decade anyway, as far as input into growth and development. So I think it's an important step.
It is. It could be the most important plan that I've worked on to date, here, so and maybe ever in my career. So, yeah, thanks.
Make it right. No.
Yeah.
No, thanks. I guess that's all we have. And it's 10:25, and our study session is complete. Thank you, Amanda.